Well, good afternoon. And again, we want to thank you and welcome you for coming to Tucson Ministry Alliance. Our topic today is caring for our kids. And I have met most of you, but for those of you that I have not yet had an opportunity to meet, my name is Dave Drum, and I lead the church domain of For Tucson. And for this topic today, my part is to give the big picture. When I was a kid, and when I'd be homesick from school with asthma and so couldn't be very mobile, jigsaw puzzles were a big part of my life. My mom is probably smiling right now, sitting right over there. And so I like to see how the pieces fit in the bigger picture. So it's important for you to hear that my part is the big picture, because if you try to focus on all the little tiny pieces, I can almost guarantee you're going to get frustrated. Because I'm going to run a whole bunch of statistics in front of you to kind of ask the question, how are we doing as a city when it comes to caring for our kids? And really all you need to know is not that well. So that's the big picture, but here's a little bit of data. So all of these are some recent statistics within the last 5 years or so. You might have seen this article in the Arizona Daily Star just within the last week or two, that as a state we rank 46th in education, 49th in student-teacher ratio. The article didn't give numbers, but it pointed out that we have a very poor dropout rate, a very poor graduation rate, very poor ACT scores. You know the story. So I meant to mention, too, on the front end that if you are a person who likes statistics, if you want to try to write them all down, you can. But otherwise, if you're really interested, just give me a note, and I'll send you the PowerPoint so you don't have to write it all down. So, next slide. 2012 census, Tucson is the 6th poorest city of the 100 largest metro areas in the country. A lot more statistics, but I want to pause for a second and let you know, again, some more kind of big picture. For Tucson, the organization that is one of the partner organizations with Tucson Ministry Alliance, is working to see all of the pieces in the city come together. If we want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So we want to see all the different domains and all the different, everybody that's got a piece of the puzzle, how can we do that together? And if you are familiar at all with For Tucson, you know we're kind of organized around a domain strategy. But the next step in the development of that strategy is to get all of the domains to work together in a particular focus area. And so we're just moving into that area of development as an organization. And so the very first one that we're going after is poverty reduction. And out of that, we've got a task force, and we've actually done some current research. So all the rest of the statistics that you're going to see are current research for our area. So, median income, just look at the trend there. There's the United States median income. Arizona's is a little bit less, Pima County's is a little bit less, and City of Tucson is at the bottom. So if you're interested in this whole topic of how all of this comes together as it relates to poverty reduction, that's what our strategic banquet is going to be addressing for Tucson, and there's cards over there. That's the entire commercial for that. So next one. According to the Brookings Institute, 40% of American children are born outside of marriage, and that's for the entire population. If you do subsets, that number goes up dramatically. The Star just a couple of years ago, 52% of Tucson children are living with single parents. And now if you flip it around the other direction, if you look for, in Pima County, children who are living in poverty, 71% of children who are living in poverty are living with only one parent. which tells you that's a major indicator on the welfare of children. We know that, but we've got some data to back it up. U.S. Conference of Bishops study. We could probably guess this, but the numbers are staggering. It's not 14% higher, it's 14 times more likely that a child will suffer serious physical abuse if they're living with a single mother than if they're living with their biological parents. 14 times more likely. And if that single mother is cohabiting with somebody other than the father, it jumps to 33 times more likely. Again, just really staggering numbers. And then, of course, our state still, this is a 2016 statistic, we still have the third highest teen pregnancy rate in the country. I want to put up a couple more that, again, are go for the big picture because the details will swarm you. So this is a map of our city based on the official neighborhoods. That's what all those little boxes are. And it's talking about what percentage of people between the age of 18 and 24 have less than a high school education. Does that make sense? So the green is less than 4%. And that'd be what you'd want. The average is 2%. I've got this one, sorry, I was thinking of the next slide. So it's 8%. Green is less than 8%. The red is all the way down to 32 to 55% of people between the age of 18 and 24 that do not have a high school education. And you can see the neighborhoods that are in red. Let's go to the next one, teen pregnancy. This is the one I was thinking about. Green is less than 4%. And that's where the average is 2%. So you'd want to all be green. But again, the red is between 31 and 65% of teenagers between the age of 15 and 19 have had a child in the last year. In the last year, between 31 and 65%. One more. What percentage of children were born to unmarried parents? So green is less than 18%. The kind of light color is 18 to 55%. Yellow is 55% to 99% of babies were born to an unmarried mother. The red, every single child in those neighborhoods was born in the last year. Every child that was born in the last year was born to an unmarried parent. So, again, what's the big picture? How are we doing? Not so well. So, point those numbers out just to say that the darker the darkness is, the brighter the light shines. So, in the midst of that kind of an environment that we live in, what are some solutions? So, let's go to the next slide. And again, my part is big picture. So we don't always talk about this, but how does the part that we're going to focus on are the last two today. But I think we need to look at the bigger picture. Healthy individuals is how we're going to help to address some of that. So there's a lot of ministries around the room that's your part of the picture. So recovery type ministries are helping individuals get healthier. Evangelism is addressing the spiritual need for health. Discipleship ministries, renewal ministries, all of those are helping individuals get healthier the way that God intended. Next one, healthier families. There's a whole bunch of ministries around the room that are addressing parts of that. So marriage ministries would be helping families to get healthier. Parenting ministries. Employment is a piece of the picture. It's a huge stressor if there's financial stress on a family. All kinds of statistics to back that up. Healthy churches can help to produce healthier individuals and healthier families. So anything that we're doing in the city that's helping pastors to get healthier helps the church to get healthier, helps individuals and families to get healthier. I'm a huge believer that the whole city-church unity picture is helping churches get healthier, because as we work together, we can help one another see our blind spots, that you can't see your own blind spot. But when you're in relationship with others, some of that can get pointed out and you grow healthier. Plus, again, the biblical picture of a body, and the city church is a body with many parts, is that when one part suffers, we all suffer together. So we're intended to be helping each other. Churches will grow healthier the more connected they are. Leadership training. A bunch of us were just at the Global Leadership Summit last week. All of that are pieces to the picture for how we get healthier as a church, which then helps our individuals and families. I think all of that is God's plan A. When we're talking about the welfare of children in our city, that's plan A. In the meantime, what do we do for all of the children that are not blessed to live in healthy families with healthy individuals as part of a healthy church? Well, then we need to care for those kids as well. So mentoring is a huge ministry, and there's several people around the room that are involved in various aspects of mentoring. And then the two parts that we're going to spend our most time looking at today are DCS church partnership and church school partnerships. And just one more kind of big picture comment before I get out of the way and we get to the exciting stuff where we see some ways that God is moving in remarkable ways in our city. Every fall, this is TMA's 5th year, and so every fall before that, we've gotten a large group of stakeholders in the community together to say, what are the topics that we're going to look at for next year? And so we're always trying to address some topics that we haven't talked about before. But how many people have read Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby? Well, almost half the room. The concept is, where is God working, and how do we join him in it? So every year when we're picking topics, we also ask that question. Where are some areas in our community that God is working, and how can we join him in it? So if ever wondered, why do we have a couple of topics that show up every year? It's because those are areas that are kind of the tip of the spear where God is working in the community. And so we want to keep joining him in that and hear some updates on what's happening and how we can jump on board with what God's already doing. So DCS, Department of Child Safety, came to the Christian community a couple years ago and said, we've heard about all the work that Christian churches have done with schools. Would you consider adopting us too? Many of you have heard that before, but if you haven't, you probably need to pinch yourself, because that's actually what happened. Government agency, Department of Child Services, how can you guys partner with us too? And so out of that, a care portal ministry was born. And so Sue Baird is going to come and talk about that. And then I'll introduce our next speaker after Sue is done. So let's welcome Sue.
I love this first slide because it says a God-sized vision, and it truly is. I think what it is, do I need to hold this? Can you hear me? Okay. It would be audacious to think that we as individuals or even as ministries could serve or solve the problems of children in care in our community. But God has a vision for this, and I believe his number one plan that is going to last throughout eternity is his church. So I'm passionate to see the local church in Tucson and Pima County mobilized to care for children in need. Okay, this is just for those who may not be familiar with Care Portal, real quick, it is just kind of an underlying email platform supported by a website as well, but basically it's all done by email that connects your local church with the needs of children and families in the community. And let's go to the next slide. This is a little easier to see. We work across what I call 4 buckets of child welfare: prevention, foster care, adoption, and transition, which is children aging out of the foster care system. Right now, since we launched Care Portal in Pima County, we were a pilot for the state of Arizona. We launched December 3rd last year. And since then, over 50% of the requests we've had come in have been in the area of prevention. So catching the kids upstream before they get sucked into the foster care system is always preferable if you can keep them safely in their homes with their own families. So let's go to the next slide. This is just giving you an idea. Care Portal is a pretty new ministry, about 18 months old. It started in Texas. Their headquarters are Kansas City, Missouri. So when I heard about it a little over a year ago, it was in Texas, Missouri, and Kansas. And I said, we have to have this in Arizona. So began lobbying. So as of just about a month ago, we became an official active Care Portal state. We launched and we're in pilot for the first about 8 months. The yellow states you see are those who are still in pilot. The white states are ones where people are inquiring, wanting to bring it. Okay, I don't want to go very deep in the weeds of statistics, but I wanted just to show you a couple of things trend-wise that are happening. This is from the DCS website and some of their statistics. These were updated as of July 14th. Year over year, you can see reports, which is hotline calls that reach a level that need to be investigated, have gone down about 14%. That's a good trend. The removals from homes have gone down about 20%. That's a great trend. Unfortunately, exits from state care have only gone up about 1%, and their statistics are showing children in state care has gone up about almost 6%. It's probably hard to read, but 5.99%. Let's do the next one. This, so there's this trend down in some ways, but upward still in foster care. In Arizona, in Pima County, these statistics were put together for us by DCS last year. It's an average number per month for the first 6 months of 2015. The good news is when you look at children in foster care, the average in 2015 for the first 6 months was 3,320. And I was just in a meeting with Child Welfare about 2 weeks ago, and our statistics are remaining stable as far as we're not increasing the number of children being taken into care. So we're still at about 3,300 kids in state custody in Pima County right now. So that, considering the rest of the state has gone up, is a good thing. And if you remember from the prior slide, we're nearly 19,000 children in state custody now. Compare that to before the economic crisis in 2009, there, I understand, were less than 10,000 children in state care. So we've almost doubled. And of course, this needs to be turned around. So this is just a quick overview of what you can see by going to the Care Portal website. Children impacted and families impacted. All the children and families, 468 and 194 families, are Pima County numbers because nobody else in the state is taking a request yet from DCS to help children. Maricopa County is getting ready to launch the 1st of September on a pretty limited basis. They're only going to be taking requests in the prevention area and in a small geographic area. So when you see 33 active churches, that does include 9 so far that are enrolled in Maricopa County. We have 24 active churches here, which means they've gone through the steps to be able to take emails and know what to do with them in their church community when they receive a request. I have about 24 churches that are activated here. Of those, probably 12 are really active. So when you see those numbers, I'm encouraged by that, with 468 kids helped with, somewhere between 12 and 24 churches helping do that. The idea behind Care Portal really is every church doing a little. And it's the idea that if you knew there was a child in your neighborhood or even across town that was sleeping on the floor because they had no bed, and I didn't really realize that before, but you would be shocked at how many children don't have beds to sleep in. But the idea is that if the church knew that, they would want to do something, and we're seeing them respond and do that. The next slide just quickly shows, it's probably too small, but the orange circle is the amount of needs that have been met from the total that we've received by the church. So the church is meeting about 75% of the requests that come in through the Care Portal, which I'm thrilled with that number. When J. Michael and For Tucson and the social services domain were our huge champions in this whole area, and we told DCS if we could meet 50% of the needs, we'll consider that successful, and they would too. So the fact that we've met 74, I'm very encouraged. The black are needs that are still out there. I think as of last night, we have about 40 open requests on our in our system, and then the other is met by other than the church. So somebody else was able to meet the need before the church answered. So this slide just shows what if every church did a little. It kind of relates to the statistics Dave had. Nationwide, there's about 400,000 children in foster care, about 400,000 churches. So it's pretty much a one-to-one ratio. If each church said, hey, I'd be responsible for one child that's suffering. In our state, because I think maybe less churches and higher numbers of kids, it would take almost 4 churches, 3.82 children per church, if we, said, okay, we'll take these on. It's not an exact representation. Okay, next slide. This is just all the churches in Pima County in a little map view. And again, the question, what if every church did a little? Because it's not for each of us to do it all, but could we reach the churches in our zip code? Could we partner with that church across town that may not have the financial resources that we do, but is there physically to engage with that family? And the goal of Care Portal is not just to get them the crib or the bed or the bed bug treatment. The goal is to connect that family with the body of Christ in a way which hopefully will lead them to want Jesus to come into their family, and He is the answer to all their problems. So lastly, I'll finish up here with this. One of the Church Point people here in Arizona, not long after we launched, wrote this, and I thought it was so good. Care Portal offers amazing opportunities to help meet crucial, right-now needs of children in our community. It's so much easier to mobilize volunteers when the need is clearly communicated, elicits focused action, and makes an immediate impact in the lives of those being served. And when they talk about immediate impact, I would say not only immediate impact on the children or the families being served, but an immediate impact on the people in our congregations, because working with these children and families changes us. Lastly, Director McKay, who's the head of the Department of Child Safety, came down from Phoenix for our launch last December. This type of connection between faith-based organizations and government is vital to restoring balance between protection and charity. As the good book says, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. DCS, the church, and the Care Portal just formed 3 strands. From my perspective, if nobody out there ever heard about Care Portal, I would be happy. I want the families to see your local church coming to help them. So we're just kind of hopefully the underground way that makes that connection for you so you know about the need. And I will finish up by giving you, this is what our website looks like. Please go there. And if you click on churches and then scroll down, there's a lot of information. And last slide is just showing you, there's the web address. I have brochures on the table over here. And there's 3 videos. One tells how it works, how to join, and more than a crib is just a testimony about what happens when a person becomes involved with a vulnerable family. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time. Thank you, those of you, I see many already out here. I've got my Care Portal team here in the middle. Would you guys wave your hands? And when new family, thank you. Did I get there without the stop? All right. Didn't have to throw me off.
I just want to reiterate a couple of those numbers. that Sue just shared. This just launched last December, so it's 8 months old. And 460 some kids have been directly impacted since December. That's huge. I think that probably needs some thanksgiving to the Lord. I think the number was 194 families that have been impacted just through this program just since last December. So this is just a huge praise report, I believe. The next area that we want to look at in some more detail is this whole arena of church-school partnership and how that directly impacts the health and welfare of kids. So I've invited Bernadette Gruber, who is the Education Domain Director of For Tucson, to give us an update there.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. Okay. Well, this is exciting to see the church, the body of Christ, the city church, mobilized and engaged in our city. And I have the joy every day to see that happening all over our city, all across Tucson and the outlining area. Last week, or actually the beginning of this week, Dave and I sat down with the superintendent of Sahuarita. And they're very interested in church-school partnerships and how the faith-based community could assist and come alongside and work together. So this is really, it's catching on because this is God's heart. He cares about kids. He cares about students. He cares about healthy families. So our goal, the goal of the education domain, one of the goals, is to have every school throughout Tucson and the outlining areas adopted by a church in the next few years. So that is something that we do trainings for, we build relationships and to help with that. Another thing that we do on an annual, that the community does on an annual basis is something that we call Serve Our Schools. And Serve Our Schools is a program or initiative that we do once a year, and it's over the last weekend in July and the first weekend in August, where we encourage those partnerships to serve and ask the schools, what can we help you with in order to get ready for the new school year? So this is our third annual report regarding what the Christian community has done. And as you know, whenever we're reporting, sometimes it's hard to get the data because we're relying on people to get back with us and share all of the wonderful things they've done. So this data is still kind of raw in the sense that this is not everybody. This is not everybody who's served over those weekends throughout our city, but everybody who's reported back to us, this is what we've found, that the Christian community over the last weekend in July and the first weekend in August served 85 schools over 7 school districts. There were over 1,000 people who participated, and they contributed just under 5,000 hours of service. In addition, the Christian community has donated in materials or in funds $14,600 on those 2 weekends alone. And again, these are not all the numbers. So if you haven't reported back to me and you're in this room, please do so because we want to keep this going. So that's amazing, and I just would like to say thank you. Thank you. You really are making a difference, and a lot of the churches are represented in this room, and you do amazing things. A trend that we saw last year was that churches who started out adopting 1 school, the next year they adopted 2 schools, and some of these churches are up to 4, 5, and 6 schools, what one church is adopting. I sat down with a pastor of a really, really small church, and this is their missional outreach strategy or purpose, or this is what so they're going to focus on church-school partnerships. And this small little church has adopted 4 schools in 3 different school districts. So this is something from large churches to, large congregations and small congregations can participate in as well. So what kind of impact, if we're talking about impacting children, impacting families, getting them more healthy, how do these type of projects and activities, or how are they linked to that? And let me just share first, the service projects and the prayer walking took place, and I want to share just a couple of things that were, well, I'm going to read my list of things that churches have done. So there were over 1,500 backpacks. Again, that's all that we were reported. I think there were more backpacks that were given out with school supplies, but we have a record of 1,500. 300 birthday cupcakes for students, building masonry planners, classroom setup, cleaning, decorating for teachers' classrooms, emergency kits for teachers filled with goodies, flowers for principals, helping teachers, like I said, set up their classrooms, landscaping, handwritten cards of appreciation, prayers, and encouragements for teachers. You had placing inspirational magnets on lockers for students, prayer walking. So you see the creativity is growing, and repairing and assembling furniture, shoes, clothing, sorting, filing, treat bags for students, welcome baskets for teachers. Just amazing the things that were done over those weekends. So how does that impact? Well, if you look at a teacher appreciation lunch, that's something that we often do, and it goes a long way. Because when those teachers feel valued and appreciated, that's going to impact how they interact in their classroom. Mother Teresa had said, she was asked, what is the greatest need of humans? And people expected with all of her work in Calcutta that she would say food or something like that. She said, the greatest need that people have is to be loved and appreciated. And by showing appreciation with these simple lunches or breakfasts or notes, it goes a long way. It feeds our soul. And so that impacts the classroom. Another thing that has happened with the partnerships and the relationships that have built and the trust that has been built on both sides, the school side and the church side, the Christian community has been invited to the table regarding policy issues. And let me just clarify how that works. So, for instance, there was a church school partnership that was, a pastor was invited by the school to be on the search committee for the next principal. So the school sought out the church leader to be on the committee to pick the next leader for the school. I mean, that's huge. There's also other committees that Christians have been invited to be a part of, and that's because the Christian community has served unconditionally, has been served well, and you built that trust, and they see the Christian community and the church as a valued partner, and they want you at the table in these different areas. Another thing that's happening is these church school partnerships are becoming a normal part of Tucson's culture. I just got a call. I have 2 requests from different churches. Different schools. One was a school, and one was a district director who said, do you have a church that could help us? I get those requests all the time. They're asking for our help and support, okay? And then, another story I could tell you. 2 stories. One is this church had been involved with this particular school, and this person had been on campus so much, interacting with the kids, playing sports with the kids during lunchtime, doing intramural activity with them and things like that, that when there was a position for a behavioral interventionist, they asked this person to take the job. This person is now employed as the behavioral interventionist for that school as the result of that partnership. Okay. Another thing I would like to mention is this is multi-generational. we can engage our very young to our senior adults in these partnerships, whether it be praying or being actively involved in beautification projects or just loving on the people in a school. And if I could just tell you one thing that I'm seeing over and over again is that our youth are hungry for purpose and engagement. They want to be invited to the table. They want to make a difference. They want to feel like they have a purpose. And this is one way we could help do that. But we really need to not forget our youth in these opportunities. But I saw several pictures that were sent, and that whole families were engaged in this, and that is a blessing and is something that strengthens families. Well, thank you so much for making a difference and shining God's love throughout our community.
One of the statistics that Sue put up was that over 75% of the requests that had come through Care Portal had been met. And that just was a huge, huge statistic. Bernadette and I had the opportunity this morning to meet for breakfast with a retired administrator from TUSD, moved out of town after and this was a person who the very first time that we met was like this and not interested at all. What is the church doing? Invading our space. It was a pretty clear message. Over the course of just building relationship, this same person is one of the people who said, everybody else that we ask for help, the answer is no. But when we ask you guys, the answer is always yes. It's changing the whole perspective of the Christian community for major players in our city. And that's breaking up hard ground so that the gospel can be sown. We saw that in the breakfast this morning. This very same person, after retiring, moved to another state and has introduced church school partnerships to where she's living. And was telling us that story this morning over breakfast. So the ripple effects of all of these things are as significant as the initial impact itself. We want to take some time now for some conversation. And so I've got a couple of questions up on the screen rather than printing them out. They're up here for you today. Around your table, what are you or your organizations presently doing in these two areas that we just talked about, or in other areas as well, because it all fits as part of the bigger picture. So a lot of times we've found that in these very conversations around the table, there are some divine connections that God wants to make. So we want to give a few minutes for that to happen, and then I'll come back up in a few minutes and we'll close out with some time of prayer. There's a couple of passages, and I'd like to invite you to just join me. We'll do them one at a time. Would you join me in reading that first verse up there from Malachi? See, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before that great and dreadful day of the Lord comes. He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the hearts of the children to their parents. That's how the Old Testament ends. That's the end of the Old Testament. Those are the last two verses of the Old Testament. If you understand Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to be parallel instead of consecutive, which they are parallel, it's also pretty much how the New Testament begins. Because this is Luke chapter 1, verse 17. Read that with me. He, John, will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. So it's not only how the Old Testament ends, it's how the New Testament begins. It's one of the ways. I think it ties in preparing a way for the Lord. That's a large part of what we've been talking about. So let's just take about 5 minutes or so, 5-6 minutes, and pray into that together as a table. And then I'll close us out with a couple of announcements.